MMA is without a doubt a brutal sport. Imagine being at the top of the world one moment, and then finding yourself on the mat, your head spinning, and wondering where it all went wrong. And it was quite hard for these superstars to get over a bad night at work. Without further ado, in no particular order, here are 10 boxers who suffered devastating knockout losses yet never made a comeback. Number 10. Frankie Edgar. First up is the legendary former lightweight champion Frankie Edgar, a man who personifies the word toughness. The answer was so sturdy and resilient that he was able to win UFC gold at 155 pounds despite being a natural featherweight. Even as he aged and moved past his physical prime, Edgar was always as tough as nails, very difficult to put down and nearly impossible to put away. But when Brian Ortega nailed him with a solid elbow at UFC 222 before connecting with a well-timed uppercut, it stood as the first loss by way of finish in Frankie Edgar's career. And though he tried to restart his title ambitions with a move to 135 pounds, he never did look quite as iron-shinned again, going 2-4 with 3 losses by way of knockout. Number 9. Rory McDonald. Looking back on it, Rory McDonald had an incredible career. That said, we can't help but wonder just how great he might have been if he didn't cross paths with Robbie Lawler in 2015. Facing off in a rematch at UFC 194, their second meeting is the gold standard for MMA title fights, a back-and-forth war that left Rory McDonald with a battered face by the end of this legendary matchup. Rory did go on to have a few great performances here and there, but his overall potential really did suffer after that 5th-round TKO loss, and he just couldn't recapture the magic that made people see him as the possible successor to his countryman George St. Pierre. And after going 2-4 in PFL, Rory McDonald, at the age of just 33, retired from the sport with a pro record of 23-10-1. Number 8. Chuck Liddell. As an icon of MMA's golden age, Chuck Liddell is revered for his insane knockout power, incredible takedown defense, and durable chin. Those attributes helped him carve out a 4-fight streak of title victories as light heavyweight champion, allowing the Iceman to become a major crossover star for the promotion. Rivalries with fellow greats like Randy Couture and Tito Ortiz only served to turn Liddell into one of the most beloved fighters of his time. But when Quentin Rampage Jackson came into the fray and earned his second stoppage victory over Liddell, it was pretty clear that Liddell was losing momentum. A trio of knockout defeats would follow as Liddell was finished by Rashad Evans, Rich Franklin, and Shogun Hua. Things actually got so bad for Liddell that Dana White had to personally ask him to hang up his gloves for good. Thankfully, he did, but those last few Chuck Liddell fights were pretty rough, to say the least. Number 7. Luke Rockhold. While Luke Rockhold might not be everyone's favorite fighter, he certainly managed to go out with quite a redemption arc, retiring after a back-and-forth war against Paulo Costa, earning everyone's respect and defeat. But his UFC 278 performance was made to look even more impressive because of just how bad he's looked in recent years. And ever since Michael Bisping knocked him out at UFC 199 to steal away his middleweight title, the former champion has struggled to maintain his previous form, getting brutally KO'd on multiple occasions. Sure, his final UFC bout saw him recapture some of the public's respect, but Bisping's left hook certainly left its mark on his career. Number 6. Ronda Rousey. The largest portion of Ronda Rousey's career was spent enjoying a run of total domination over the women's bantamweight division, a run of form so impressive that people were starting to make some pretty outlandish claims about her abilities. Of course, when Holly Holm ended the Rousey era with a swift head kick at UFC 193, Ronda was never the same again. It wasn't just the fact that she failed to show up for her matchup against Amanda Nunes, but these days, even mentioning the word MMA around Ronda can be enough to bring an interview to an end. An incredible winner in her heyday, but it must be said that the great Ronda Rousey didn't know how to lose with grace. Number 5. Junior Dos Santos. Even though Junior Dos Santos is a heavyweight, his ability to rebound from devastating losses was an incredible sight to behold. At several points in his career, it looked like GDS had finally reached the end of the line. His second loss to Cain Velasquez, his TKO against Overeem, and the first-round stoppage to the longtime champion Stipe Miocic. But somehow, Dos Santos persisted. However, all that changed after his loss to Francis Ngannou. GDS had gone 3-0 after his last title fight, and looked set up to offer a major test for the immensely powerful Francis Ngannou. Of course, it took Francis just 71 seconds to finish him with a knockout, and from there, Dos Santos would lose his next 3 in a row, all by way of TKO. The UFC and Dana White obviously held Junior Dos Santos in high regard, but soon enough he was shipping off for Khabib Nurmagomedov's Evil Fexi, where his debut matchup ended in defeat thanks to a shoulder injury in the 3rd round. Number 4. Robbie Lawler. Robbie Lawler was always known for his incredible chin and his willingness to engage in brutal warfare inside the cage. But when Tyron Woodley rose up through the rankings and starched him inside round 1 at UFC 201, capturing the title, Lawler was never quite the same fighter afterwards. From there, the ferocity that Lawler normally had seemed to fade away with each passing fight, and a 2-5 run would culminate in a brutal knockout defeat to Bryan Barberena. A good fighter, of course, but a far cry from the type of opponent that Robbie would struggle with in his prime. Every now and again, you'll see a glimpse of the old Lawler shine through, but his many years of service finally seemed to catch up with him. Number 3. Ben Askren. Ben Askren was definitely past his prime when he came out of retirement to finally occupy a place on the UFC roster. But one disastrous matchup against Rory McDonald would leave him in a pretty terrible spot. Following a 5-second flying knee knockout to Masvidal, Askren had a pretty forgettable showing against Damian Maia, a loss that saw him retire once again from MMA. But the biggest failure for Askren would come when he was finished by YouTube sensation Jake Paul, a KO that really put a downer on his excellent career. Askren was a legitimately great fighter during his heyday, but these days he is unfortunately mentioned more as a punchline and a joke than anything else. Number 2. Chris Weidman. Luke Rockhold may have already made his appearance on this list, but he was also directly responsible for the downfall of the once great Chris Weidman. 2015 was the year, and Weidman was on the top of the world. With a middleweight belt around his waist and 2 wins over the legendary Anderson Silva on his resume, it seemed like the UFC had another breakout star on their hands. Enter the former Strikeforce king Luke Rockhold and his stunning BJJ top game. UFC 194's co-main event served as the battleground for these 2 middleweight elites, but once Rockhold got a hold of the All-American, it was clear who the better fighter was. What followed was a truly brutal beatdown, one that probably should have been stopped a lot sooner. Unfortunately, it wasn't, and Weidman took a career-changing amount of damage, going 2-5 in his UFC run after that, with all of those losses coming by either KO or TKO. Weidman is undoubtedly an exceptional fighter, but the latter portion of his career has not been kind to the All-American. Number 1. Cody Garbrandt. Out of all of the fighters on this list, Cody Garbrandt's fall from grace is without question one of the strangest. After bursting onto the bantamweight scene with a series of brutal knockouts, Garbrandt managed to put on the performance of a lifetime to defeat Dominic Cruz and capture his belt. Even if giving Garbrandt a good chance at scoring a KO was reasonable, the fact that he went in there and outmaneuvered Cruz and showed superior footwork and head movement was quite remarkable. But then he came up against his old teammate TJ Dillashaw, losing the fight by second round TKO. And ever since then, Cody has unfortunately looked like a shell of his former self, showing a questionable chin while being drawn into wars he's not equipped for. A move down to 125 pounds produced even worse results, as Cody got himself knocked out almost immediately by Kai Kara-France. Now returning to bantamweight, it's very hard to see how this once great talent turns his career around. As always, if you guys enjoyed the video, please be sure to let me know by leaving a like and subscribing to our channel. Apart from that, thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.